Well, for more on this story, I'm joined in studio by PSA's Assistant General Manager, Ruben Maleka, and the SCOPA Chairman, Mr. Themba Godi, joins us via the phone line. Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now, Mr. Maleka, just talk to us about what happens now after this court ruling. Do the workers go back to work tomorrow? Does the strike continue?
Yeah, thank you. I think first I must say that it's very sad that after holding several meetings with the minister, in fact telling her exactly what the court told her today, it could have come without any cost. So, but today the court judgment has actually confirmed the PSA's position that Sassa needs to come to the table and negotiate salary negotiations with us as the PSA. And we have been saying that we are not, a union that is trigger happy. We want to go on strike. Mm-hmm. The ultimate aim that we are looking for was to get the minister to allow the negotiations to unfold at Sassa, and therefore we are saying that the ruling or the judgment that says the workers must report for duty tomorrow, we support it, because we all know that Sassa is actually an agency that deals with the poor and the vulnerable. Therefore, we welcome the judgment. We're saying that we call upon our members to report for duty tomorrow on Thursday. And it's good that judgment has also gave time frames to say, come next week Thursday, they want a report of what are the developments in terms of negotiations. And therefore, it is upon now up to Sassa to come to the table and discuss these matters. We believe that there's a potential of a settlement, and we move forward in terms of making sure that Sassa employees get salary adjustment according to their demands.
So since the judgment was made, has Sassa mentioned anything about setting up a day, a time for negotiations to begin?
Yeah, that's why we were waiting. That's why there's a time frame to say by next week Thursday we have to go and report back to the court in the form of a affidavit of saying that what are the developments in terms of negotiations. So we believe that we said all the time that we are available 24 hours to negotiate. Even if they call us tonight at 12, we are ready to roll and make sure that we deal with those issues that we have tabled as our demands. This is a good thing, because even other employees of Sassa who are not belonging to PSA would realize that there's a need for them to belong to a union like the PSA that would not back down in terms of their demands.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mr. Godi, as an overseeing authority, what can be done to sort of permanently deal with the situation instead of having people who offer essential services going on strike?
Thank you very much. It is, of course, of grave concern to us that Sassa officials had to find themselves in this situation. As you know, that throughout our engagements as Parliament on matters related to Sassa, we have always appreciated the fact that they are dealing with the most vulnerable in our society, and care must always be taken to ensure that they don't become the grass that suffer when two elephants fight. Now, in relation to your question, so for Sassa, but I'm sure so for all essential services, there has to be a legal framework or mechanism that ensure that labor issues are resolved without creating anxiety or threatening the ability of grant recipients to get the services that they need. And to the extent that these mechanisms are not in place, I think it is an unfortunate thing on the side of government.
Well, just coming back to studio, the union actually once mentioned that they are willing to collapse Sassa to sort of put their point across. At what cost, especially seeing that you are actually providing services to the most vulnerable members of our society?
Yeah, firstly, maybe let me take from what Mr. Godi has stated, that they are essential service. There are mechanisms. The Labour Relations Act provides for Essential Services Committee to determine whether Sassa employees should be essential services in terms of the Act. And we have gone through that process. There was a dispute about whether they are essential or not. And the Essential Service Committee, they have in 2016 ruled that Sassa employees are not essential services. That's the definition of essential service in terms of the Labour Relations Act. Mm-hmm. But coming to your question, when we mentioned all the time that the services of Sassa would collapse, it was in response to the attitude that we're getting from Sassa, including the minister, in the manner that they want to deal with us as the PSA. Remember, our intention was never to make sure, was never to disrupt the services to an extent that the poor themselves feels the pain. But we were actually pushed to an extent of moving to a full-blown strike. Remember, the strike actually should have resumed on the 7th of June. We have been indicating through pickets during lunchtime that we would want the minister to allow negotiations to unfold. And we have been patient very long, from the 7th of June up until this week. Then we realized that the minister is not even willing to listen to us. And unfortunately, and that's very unfortunate, that we had to resort to a full-blown strike. And obviously, what we expect, a full-blown strike is what one can call a collapse of Sassa services, which was very much unfortunate, because we believe that the attitude that we given to the PSA was wrong, and it came at the expense of the Sassa recipient, which was something could have been avoided. We have been calling negotiations. We have been saying we are ready to engage Sassa, but they've been like ignoring us and wrongly advised. I believe that they were wrongly advised in terms of the process of negotiations, because they were saying if public servants have accepted 7%, Sassa should do the same thing. We have been saying to them that Sassa is not in terms of public service. Sassa is an agency. Sassa should be dealt with similar like SARS. So, but they've ignored those advices. We really gave advice at no cost. It's unfortunate now that they have to pay cost that on the same advice that we gave them. But the court has now said that they must pay cost.
Now, Mr. Godi, do you think that the minister perhaps should have maybe given an instruction to the CEO of Sassa to get negotiations underway instead of waiting for a court order to be handed down? Mr. Godi, do you think that the Minister of Social Development should have actually given an instruction to the CEO of Sassa to have negotiations between Sassa and the PSA begin instead of waiting for a court action to be taken? It seems we have lost the chairman of SCOPA, Mr. Themba Godi. We're hoping to get some reaction there from him regarding what they were thinking. So what do you think will be the way forward then, moving on from now? Do you think that Sassa will respond now that the courts have given an ultimatum for a week for you to report back to them? Do you think that might motivate them to come to the bargaining table?
Yeah, they have to. Obviously, there are rules that have been set in the judgment, and failing to adhere to those is the content of court. And I don't want to see a situation whereby, on the simple advice that the PSA gave them, free to Sassa, and confirmed by the judgment today, they still want to have a content of court. I think that obviously we'll have to call upon that those individuals, they should be held personally liable to pay the cost of the court, because at the moment, they have to use the taxpayers' money to pay the cost that goes with the judgment. Therefore, we are saying we are ready. 24 hours, we are ready to roll. We want to get into negotiations. We believe that if they come to negotiations right now, we'll be able to resolve this impasse, because we still believe that there's a room for negotiations, because there's never been a response to our demands. So if they are serious enough, they'll come and respond to our demands and say why they can afford this, why they can't afford that. But that has never happened. That's why I'm saying we are hopeful and confident that they should come back to the table, and we will be able to find a solution to our demands. And that is the way of a dialogue and collective bargaining should unfold.
And Mr. Rubin, you know, I know that you want about 13% of an increase, but is the salary increase the only issue that is on the table? Are there other issues that you also want Sassa to address with regards to the employees? Yes.
The other critical issues that needs to be addressed is the issue of medical aid. Currently, Sassa itself, they align themselves with the public service. They are saying, if you're a Sassa employee, you must join GEMS. Not belong to GEMS, therefore you don't get any medical aid subsidy. We are saying we want Sassa to open up. We need Sassa to have a freedom of choice. People should not only be forced to belong to one medical aid. That is our demand. We are saying, if I choose to belong to any other medical aid, it should be my choice. I should not be forced to belong to GEMS. Other critical demand is the issue of performance assessment. We all know that the performance assessment is subjective. We need it to be reviewed. Those are the demands that are critical to us. And the other one is the issue of outsourcing. We know what happened with the CPS contract. We also seen that to start from the beginning, we need even smaller services, cleaning services, security services, to be insourced in the Sassa as an agency so that they can be managed by Sassa themselves, so we ensure efficiency of Sassa. Even grant payments, we are saying it must be insourced in Sassa as an agency, and employees must be equipped to deal with all those issues other than outsourcing these services.
Now, we do have Mr. Themba Godi back on the line with us. Mr. Godi, do you think that perhaps the minister should have instructed the CEO of Sassa to come to the negotiating table much sooner instead of having court actions be the ones to force something to happen?
Well, I think, look, that's simple logic that does not even require the instruction of the minister. But to the extent that both the leadership of Sassa and even the ministry had to be told by the court what to do, it's very unfortunate. And I think in the recent past, we've seen instances where the courts have to tell government to do the very simple things that they exist to do. Totally unnecessary, totally undesirable. Recently, I'm sure we all recall what happened at Charlotte Maxeke. Yes, the workers did things that were unacceptable, but if you look at the root cause, it's poor management. People who, as managers, are supposed to, to act with foresight, to always be one step ahead in terms of planning, in terms of understanding things. My understanding is that Sassa has a legal department whose ability to interpret the law, legislation, should justify their monthly, payments. But the fact that things have to come to this point, I think it's very, very unfortunate, to say the least.
And would you say that perhaps things are beginning to turn around at Sassa since the appointment of a new social development minister? Look,
you know very well that we had long-running battles with the previous minister and the administration. I do think that the current minister does seem to be more decisive in terms of, in relation to the transfer of the contract from CPS to the post office. Decisions are taken much quicker, much more focused. They want to do what is right. But I do think that in that haste, there are some missteps here and there in terms of certain decisions, which let's wait and see what the Auditor General has to say. I don't want to preempt what the Auditor General will say, but I think there are a few things that are of concern to us as SCOPA, especially in relation to decisions taken on financial transactions that may not follow the letter of the law. And I think this current issue that we're discussing now, I think was on top of the glitches that are experienced nationally, just did not create a very good picture. And I think that is where her leadership should have been displayed. But I think she was caught flat-footed, so to speak.
Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening. That was the SCOPA chairman, Mr. Themba Godi. We're also joined by PSA's Assistant General Manager, Ruben Maleka. Thank you very much.
Thank you.